Call the meeting to order. First of all, let's have a good welcome for everyone. Glad to see our Representative Jerry Miller here. Very glad to see you. I'm Byron Chapman. I chair the meeting from City of Middletown, and to my right.
Tom Hall, KYTC District 5.
Kevin Nass, Oldham County.
Tanya Higdon, KYTC Central Office.
Bill Darrett, Mayor of City of Jeffersontown.
Bernie Bowling, City of St. Matthews.
Aida Kofic, TARC.
Keith Griffey, Bullitt County.
Thomas Witt, KYTC Central Office.
Emily Leolu, Metro Government.
Andy Crouch, City of Jeffersonville.
Matt Meunier, City of Jeffersontown.
Jim Udi, NDOT.
Kevin Beatty, Town of Clarksville.
Larry Cheney, KIPTA.
Sarah Bear, Kipta. Amanda Dufford, Kipta.
Andy Rush, Kipta.
Nick Bale, Kipta.
David Burton.
Gary Miller, House.
Isaac Myers, Governor's Office.
Laura Pacino, City of Mount Washington.
Barry Armstrong, City of Mount Washington.
Gary Valentine, KYTC, State Highway Engineers Office.
Hi, Chris Long, KYTC District 5.
Sean Dax with HDR.
Luke Golan, Louisville Metro.
Ashley Tenius, Kipta.
Mike King, Louisville Metro.
Todd Little, Trimont. Vince Robinson.
Genevieve Foxworth, first time interested citizen.
Well, welcome each and every one of you. Glad you're here. Let's move on to item number 2, April 25th, 2019 TPC minutes of the meeting. Motion to approve.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any additions or corrections to those minutes? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion does carry. Item number 3, this is our public comment period. This is a chance to get a chance to address this board if anyone wishes to do that. Seeing no one, we're moving to number 4, the public meeting report. Ashley, welcome.
Yes, sir. On May 6th, there was a public comment, open house period for the TIP amendment and the long range plan amendment, and I think Nick will talk a little bit about the comments that we got when he does his presentation on that. That was at the Shelby Park Highlands Library. On May 10th, we attended Creative Mornings. On May 14th, there was an Age-Friendly Louisville meeting. On May 15th, there was a IAP2 webinar on youth shaping cities. And tomorrow we'll be going to the Kentucky Association of Government Communicators Spring Conference in Frankfurt.
Okay, any questions for Ashley? Thank you, Ashley. Item number 5 is number 1, Move Kentucky. Chris,
Yes, sir, thank you.
speak to it.
So thank you all for inviting me back. I know some of you all were in the room last time. Not much have changed. Most of the presentation is the same. And we'll get started once it kicks up. This is the I Move Kentucky project. This is a Kentucky transportation project that is getting started and going on here in the Jefferson and Oldham County areas. So the project budget for the project is $180 million. The main goal of the project is to improve public safety, relieve congestion in 3 of the heavily traveled highways and the freight corridors here in the Louisville metro area, along with the Oldham County area. These projects, there's 4 projects that make up the I Move Kentucky project. 3 of the 4 of the projects rank in the top 12 of more than 2,000 projects across the state of Kentucky. And all those are because of the impact they have to the area and to the drivers in this area. We're looking at using a variable scope, best value method for this project as we go through it, for the procurement method that we plan to use on the project. The 4 projects that make up the larger project are item number 5-483. This was the widening and reconstruction of I-71 from the Gene Snyder Highway to Kentucky 329 in Oldham County. The second one was 5-539, and that is modifications to the I-65, I-71 interchange. Most of those involve a collector-distributor lane for that intersection. The third project, 5-537, was widening of I-265 Gene Snyder Highway from Taylorsville Road to I-71. And the fourth one is the reconstruction of the Gene Snyder I-64 interchange. All 4 of these were current projects with KYTC. and all of those were in different areas of design when this project was put together. So let's go through those separate projects, how we come up with this. The I-71 and intersection collector distributor lane, we plan to widen I-71 to the center, add 1 lane in each direction to create a total of 6 lanes between the Gene Snyder and Kentucky 329 in Oldham County. So currently, that interstate travels about 59,000 vehicles per day, and that was probably one of the more far along ones in the design process. We currently estimate those plans at about 80% complete on that project. Kind of grouped in with that project, as it was currently, we're going to create a collector distributor lane on southbound I-71 to help improve safety and ease the ramp weave movements. So that ramp for that intersection, about 25,000 vehicles per day travel through there. And that one has a milestone completion date for that CD lane to carry traffic by the end of 2020. So that is the only milestone date that we have on the project besides the final completion date, and that is the collector distributor lanes need to be up and running by the end of 2020. So this is just kind of a brief concept of what we currently have going there. It will function as a lot of the collector distributors do around the Louisville area. Blankenbaker, some of those. This is I-71 widening. I apologize for the picture being small, but the area is big. The bridges between Gene Snyder and Kentucky 329 were not built for capacity to 6 lanes. So all of the bridges throughout that corridor, there's currently 5, will be complete reconstructions to that section. Moving on to the Gene Snyder Highway, we also plan to widen the Gene Snyder Highway, add 1 lane to the center to make 6 lanes total, 3 in each direction. And we plan to do that between Taylorsville Road and Interstate 71. We will be just north of the Taylorsville Road intersection currently, and we'll end at the intersection with the Gene Snyder and I-71. So currently that section of the Gene Snyder carries about 88,000 vehicles per day. The current plans we have, we estimate to be about 50% complete. And as for the shift ranking, that was number 1 in the state. So that is the top of the 2,000 projects that are in the shift system. That was number 1 statewide. Brief project map on that. And the final part of this, for the 4 main projects, was the reconstruction of the I-265 and I-64 interchange. If anyone drives through there in the evening and the afternoon, you understand the queues are very long. The safety is very poor in that area. There's a lot of accidents. So we hope to help alleviate all of those issues. Currently, that intersection carries 94,000 vehicles per day currently. We have finished preliminary engineering on that, and I know last week they announced the alternate 3B was the preferred alternate for the project. That alternate also helps to minimize right-of-way impacts and utility relocations for that intersection. So almost all of that intersection and the whole project will be done within our current footprint. There's only a couple parcels, small parcels that need to go through the right-of-way process for any of the projects. So we plan to do this with a design-build method. This was the preferred alternate 3B that was released last week as part of the alternatives for the project. It involves some bridges and possible, I use the word tunnels lightly, but going under the Gene Snyder in areas. The Gene Snyder here is running north-south, I-64 is running east-west. The 2 orange lines on the right will be bridges over I-64, and the 2 orange boxes at the top and bottom are tunnels that will be going under the Gene Snyder. Along with those 4 packages, the administration has been very intent on taking care of what we got, what we currently have in our system, and we want to maintain what we currently have in our system. So with that, we plan to do quite a bit of maintenance on our existing infrastructure throughout the corridor. So we have patching of existing concrete facilities included in the project, rehab of existing asphalt facilities along the corridor, quite a bit of bridge maintenance on all the bridges throughout here. Like I said, the ones on 71s will be complete reconstructions. The ones on 265, the Gene Snyder, will more than likely be widenings and maintenance work on those bridges to help bring those bridges, keep those bridges where they're at current load capacity. And then we're going to do some lighting and ITS upgrades as needed throughout the corridor. And I think we meet with Todd and you all tomorrow on that again, don't we? ITS stuff and lighting. This project will have 12 noise barrier walls on the project, 4 along I-71, 3 along the I-64 interchange, and 5 along the Gene Snyder. And those were all brought up in the environmental documents. Currently, the district has already had public meetings on those, conducted for each of the wall for those benefited residences. And last week, geotechnical work was completed on those walls, and we should have all that geotechnical work back to us very soon to incorporate into the request for proposals for the contractors. So this is our current procurement schedule. As of right now, we are between May 20th and May 30th. So we do have statements of qualifications in. That was released on our website yesterday. We did have 2 teams that are proposing on this. Both of them do have great local connections, so I'm very pleased with that. On the 30th, we will shortlist those teams and issue the ITP on the 31st. And then after that, we'll go through the process of proposals, alternate technical concepts, and then we hope to have a project award on October 31st of this year. So it is a very aggressive project schedule for procurement and a very aggressive schedule for construction. We're going to be using the variable scope method on this design build procurement method project. Our base package includes the 4 interstate projects that we talked about earlier, the pavement rehabilitation, the bridge maintenance items, and the lighting and ITS components will all be part of the base package. With that, District 5 at KYTC has went through and prioritized other projects or other needs that we think we might be able to get in the overall bid. So we hope to maybe do add-ons to enhance the project scope throughout the bidding process. All of those additional scope items will be sent out to the contractors to review as concepts only. Design engineering for each of those concepts will be required by the DB teams, design build teams on those. So the way this is working is we have set a budget of $180 million. We expect to get all of the base package items, and then the teams will bid when they turn in their bids in October. They will bid on the number of additional add-on items that they will be able to perform within that budget. They will get more points in their scoring proposals based on how far down the prioritized list they can make it. So if you just bid the base package, you get a lot fewer points. I think right now we currently have 11 different items prioritized. And if you make it through all 11, you get the highest number of points. And if you make it through half of those, the points vary between the base and the total package. Some just examples of those. I know we're not ready to release all of those at this time. One of them is possibly extending I-71 a little further north than the Kentucky 329 intersection, maybe going through the intersection to a point farther north. Some other ones are some ramp and capacity enhancements at different ramp locations throughout the I-265 corridor. There's a lot of ramps that have queuing issues in the AM and PM peaks. We recognize those and hopefully do some capacity enhancements to help those ramps and ramp functions along the corridor. This is just basic RFQ scoring that we're currently going through currently. Teams get 30 points based on the project understanding and approach. The team, who makes up the team and their resumes are another 30, and what we consider their capabilities and experiences, 40 points, for a total of 100 points for the RFQ process. You know, design builds always have risk involved, and that's what teams evaluate when they evaluate the projects, and how they bid those is the amount of risk that they think the design build team will have to take. So we have kind of looked to hopefully minimize some of that risk for those teams, and one of the large risks on any design build job is right-of-way. So currently KYTC is responsible for obtaining all the right-of-way on the project. There's currently 4 parcels we're looking at that need to be acquired, 2 along the I-265, I-64 interchange project, and 2 parcels along the I-71 section. So those parcels are in current right-of-way process and should not affect the design build team's schedule as they move forward. Another one that the risk that design build teams always looked at is utility relocation and any railroads. Currently we know we'll be crossing at least 1 railroad, maybe more depending on how the add-ons work out for the variable scope. So the project will be mostly contained to existing corridor footprint, as I said earlier. We consider most utility locations throughout this corridor will be minor, since we are not leaving our current footprint for the most part. It will be upon the teams to negotiate and coordinate with the utility companies to facilitate any relocation as it's needed. And then the DB teams will also have to coordinate any rail activities with KYTC and the rail facilities. So KYTC will have an active part in any type of railroad coordination that needs to be done. Currently, we have already contacted the affected utility and rail owners concerning potential impacts to their facilities, and we'll have a meeting with the DB teams after they have been shortlisted to go over and explain and start the discussion of that type of coordination with them. So that's the project at a nutshell. Like I said, currently we've had 2 teams that have proposed on the project. Both these teams do have great Louisville and Kentucky roots that we are very proud of, that those 2 teams decided to put in for the project. We are moving forward, and we are looking forward to having a project awarded at the end of October, and hopefully start construction by the beginning of 2020. Yes, ma'am.
Question about the noise barriers. Are you going to construct the entire lens or just the developed area?
No, just develop area. Noise barriers are based on the benefited receptors.
Right.
So if there's no benefited receptors, it doesn't qualify for a noise
Are
barrier.
you all residential or just residential? Do you do barrier for commercial, office?
Generally not commercial, because commercials count as 1 receptor.
Right, okay.
So.
Do you hope to have the add-ons by the time the contract is awarded in October?
We will have the add-ons probably by the time the ITP. We have almost all the concepts done currently, and we'll have those add-ons with the ITP on May 31st. So it looks like next Friday we'll have all those add-ons ready to go and concepts drawn up on them all.
Yes, sir. You mentioned there's some bridges on 71 that will have to be completely rebuilt. Because they can't handle 6 lanes.
Right.
In 10 or 20 years, should the state need to expand to 8 lanes, could the reconstruction of those bridges be able to maintain or carry the lanes?
Yes, I think so. I think with the way we're looking at doing the bridges, if we ever had to go to a larger, the newer bridges could be widened. And then we're looking at putting, hopefully, the piers for the over structures in a way that may be able to facilitate additional widening. You know, right now we're going to the middle for the most part of most of the project. We won't be able to go to the middle again, especially for the bridges like Chamberlain Lane area, Brown Squirrel Road. Once you got in the bifurcated section, you would be able to, but once we get up into that section, there aren't any more bridge structures. Yes, sir.
What about completion dates for the entire project, the timelines that you're anticipating?
Current completion date is currently set at November 1st of 2023. So that gives them a little less than 4 years, almost 4 years from award date to completion date. And that includes the add-ons and all. If they bite off more than the base package for their add-on, then all of those add-ons and the base package will all have to be done by the same date. They don't get extra time for adding additional scope to that $180 million budget.
Any incentives to complete early?
No, not currently. Yes, sir.
That includes design time,
Yes, that includes everything.
right? So when would you anticipate starting construction?
January.
January, whoa.
Like I said, the CD and the I-71 plans are currently about 80% done. I think a lot of those they could take off pretty quick.
Let's see, make turn.
And probably start on the Gene Snyder I-71 interchange fairly quickly, and then probably start moving north of I-71 fairly quickly, while they're refining their design on the Gene Snyder and the interchange project.
As you stated earlier, it's a very aggressive schedule.
It's a very aggressive schedule, yes, sir. But I think we got two teams that are willing to meet it, and I think can meet it very successfully. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Item number 6 is proposed amendments to MPO planning documents. Nick,
Yes, thank you.
bring us up to speed.
Absolutely.
You've got a couple items here, haven't you?
Actually, Amanda Deathridge is going to do the last
Okay.
administrative modification item. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm here to present Amendment 12 of the Horizon 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the corresponding Amendment 5 of the Transportation Improvement Program. The packet that was included in the mail out, just want to refer you guys to what you guys received. So you should receive, obviously, the memo for this item. This is an action item today to approve these amendments to our 2 plans and programs. The next item, 6A, includes a memo that went out to the public about what we're asking them, what we're amending, what we're changing. There's a project table. It's got the 4 projects in there. We've got our minutes from our conference call with the interagency consultation group, which includes our federal, state partners, both transit, roadway, EPA, air quality, you name it. We're on that call. I can say that for these projects, they're all considered exempt when it comes to air quality. And then behind that, you'll find any public comments that we received. We did have a public meeting last month or earlier this month. We had a few comments there. Most were not relevant to this project. We did receive another one comment, and I can speak to that a little later when we talk about the projects. But all those public comments are in your packet. And that kind of concludes what's going on inside this package. Just wanted to orient y'all to that. So the reason why we're doing this amendment currently is that KYTC announced, I think a couple months ago, that they had awarded CMAQ funds, so Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Funds, for 4 projects in the Louisville, or the KIPTA region, I should say. All 4 projects were exempt, meaning they're likely to contribute to the attainment or maintenance of air quality in our region. And so no air quality conformity analysis was done for this amendment. The 4 projects, I'll get into those here. The first one is a Louisville Metro ITS project, essentially, Intelligent Transportation Systems. Connection 21 is a signal system upgrade, as well as some research. I think the primary purpose would be to expand fiber communications and upgrade those traffic signal controllers. And it's going to be targeted at the most heavily traveled corridors in Jefferson County. The second one is the I-71 northbound exit ramp improvements to KY53. The plan is to widen that exit ramp from 1 to 2 lanes, adding left and right turn lanes. That exit, I think, as our folks from KYTC alluded to, gets backed up in the AM and PM peak. And there'll also be some traffic signal improvements as well in that area. The other two projects are both for TARC. One is the outer loop circulator. This is a new circulator route to add approximately 8 peak morning and 8 afternoon weekday trips, I should say. It's going to go from Iroquois Park to the Renaissance Business Center, Commerce Crossings via the National Turnpike, and then we'll go to the Outer Loop and Preston Highway. It'll connect to 4 other TARC routes. And then finally, there will be the purchase of 2 additional extended range electric vehicles for TARC, including depot chargers as well. So those are the 4 projects that we are asking your approval to amend into our current TIP and current MTP. A little mention about the schedule. Back in mid-April, the project information forms were due from the project sponsors. We had that interagency consultation call on the 25th of April. The public comment period went 15 days from April 29th to the 14th of May. We had our public open house at the Shelby Highlands Park Library, and we got TTC recommendation 2 weeks ago, and we are here today for TPC action. Before I ask for action, I'll take any comments or questions if you have them.
Any questions? We're ready for a motion
All right.
to accept the amendment?
Yes, we'll need to take these one at a time. So the first action is to recommend approval of Amendment 12 to the Horizon 2035 MTP.
Motion. Have a motion? Oh, a motion second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Your next motion?
All right, thank you, sir. The next action is to recommend approval of Amendment 5 to the fiscal year 2018 to 2021 TIP.
So moved.
Have a motion second?
Second.
Have a motion second. Any questions? All in favor of that? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Full carry. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Item number 6 is U.S. Census participant, Andy. Right. Andy, welcome.
Thank you. All right, this should be, you've heard me talk about this before, including at TTCC, so I'll try to be brief today. This should be the last presentation regarding this Census PSAP, Participant Statistical Areas Program, at least until board meeting here in an hour, but the last of the TPC. So again, just for a reminder, this is the census program where we get the opportunity once every 10 years to update several boundaries, including census tracts, census block groups, something called a census-defined place, which is a place that's not an incorporated place, that might look or feel, have some sort of community character that it's similar to an incorporated place. And in Kentucky, anyways, these census county divisions, large areas, perhaps just a couple in most counties. Indiana does not have those because Indiana has townships in their state. So those serve as the census county divisions in Indiana. So the U.S. Census Bureau has designated KIPTA as the primary participating organization for the Kentucky counties to administer this process. And that's what we've done, or that's what we're wrapping up just here this week. In Indiana, that responsibility lies with the River Hills Economic Development District. So they are kind of the, they're kind of like the KIPTA ad is for several counties in southern Indiana. So we have one opportunity to do this until 2030. So this has been our shot. Once again, this doesn't impact anything to do with any municipal boundaries. That's a separate process, also administered, or at least in part, by the Census Bureau. It has nothing to do with zip codes, and it doesn't directly have anything to do with school districts or legislative districts. Perhaps downstream from this process, could those things be, could census tracts become your school districts? Perhaps so, and same for legislative districts, but that is certainly not their intent. The intent is to get good statistical area on regions or smaller areas that have common characteristics. So we started with the 2010, what's there existing, and so this is just to give you some scale. The different areas, you can perhaps, their size, they go from small to large. Census blocks, there are many thousands in our 9-county region. Block groups, about 848 it says. Tracts, just under 300. CCDs, there's 33 in Kentucky, and again, none in Indiana. And those census-defined places, there are 8, 4 in each state. So again, this right here is what is the existing that came out of the 2010 process. This is what is being updated presently. So it's been updated in, I guess you could say, a two-phase approach. The first is that the Census Bureau proposed a set of boundaries to us, or to the public at large, and that's what we have in the middle in terms of the census tracts. Okay, so if we make no changes, we get what they propose for us. At the same time, they are asking agencies like ours to administer the process and provide that local knowledge to this process, add that to the process. Okay. So on the far right is the numbers, anyways, of census tracts that came out of the local process. Okay. So that process was a bit iterative. We took the Census Bureau's proposals. We made some suggestions. We took it out to all of you, to the communities, in the form of several meetings and other consultation, and took that feedback and made those changes on the fly at those meetings typically. And the columns on the far right, we ended up with 322 tracts, which is 5 more than the Census Bureau proposed. Which is 33. That is 33 more than we have presently, because they had suggested the addition of 28 census tracts within our region. Block groups, perhaps a similar story told here. They proposed block groups. We modified block groups. The one thing that's important to note here in terms of block groups, and I think most of you have heard me say this before, is that we use what are called traffic analysis zones in our travel demand model. This census process, as opposed to past census processes, is the process that it's the only chance we have to define those TAZs. In the past, we had a separate process to define those TAZs. They have effectively, let's say, merged those two processes, or you only get one shot. And so block groups are the closest size boundary. So that's why we pay particular attention to these, in particular in the MPO area, for sure. So net result, we added 66. They had already added 48. So we've got a net addition of over 100. That is compared to what is existing right now. Most of those were, I would say, they're cleaning up of boundaries. Many of them are instances where growth or development has occurred since 2010, so they've been split. So just real briefly, just to, a summary what we've done and kind of the outcome. We've effectively made very few changes. It sounds like we made a lot, but we did not make a whole lot of changes. Most of them, or all of them, maintain census tract consistency. It's important to be able to compare tracts decade over decade over decade. And so when there are new tracts, it's when a tract gets split, typically in half. Not only do we maintain that consistency, folks at Little Metro wanted us to maintain consistency with the market areas that were a product or an input to the comprehensive plan, their comprehensive plan, and so we made sure that we didn't mess up any of those boundaries, let's say. So those are pre-existing, so we want to make sure that anything we do does not impact that. Again, most of it was just cleaning up the boundaries. Here's an example. So this is kind of the west end. So the red boundaries are the existing tract boundaries. The green are the existing block group boundaries. The blue are the proposed tract boundaries, and then the pink in the middle is the proposed block group boundary. So this was an example of a tract the Census Bureau said split. They chose to split this tract as part of the 2020 process. It's bounded by Market Street in the north, Broadway in the south, the railroad tracks that are just east of downtown in the east, and then barely behind the graphic it is 28th Street in the west. Okay, so you notice the green dotted boundary, their boundaries are very jagged. No good reason, in our view, to keep those jagged boundaries. So we split it up, what hopefully is a more common sense way. We split the tract along 22nd Street, which is the most major north-south street in that pair of tracks. And then also, instead of splitting the block groups with those zigzags, we use Muhammad Ali as the block group boundary. So same end product, there's still 4 and 4. There's 4 to our 4 block groups, that is, 2 tracks, 4 block groups. But this, we believe this is a more of a common sense, straightforward, cleaner approach. And so that's a good example of what we did, let's say regionally. Again, we tried to make sense for our TAZs. The local input was very invaluable. We got it from all directions and from each county. And one other thing I want to mention is we utilize another thing called a special use area. The Census Bureau has promoted these, if you will, in that these are areas where there's no population, little or no population. And so here's a prime example in downtown Louisville. You can see this blue line, the track boundary is I-65. The pink or the salmon coral colored area on the top is the Ohio River. So in this tract in particular, more or less half of that tract is water. So anything that you do with that tract, anything density related you do with that tract, you kind of screwed up before you can get started. And so we separated at the block group level and established special use block groups for a series of tracts, along the Ohio River. We also utilize this approach at River Ridge over in Clark County. Shawnee Park is also a proposed new special use block group. These are areas where we don't need demographic information because literally nobody lives there. Nobody lives there in homes, or very few people live there. Industrial areas, the airport is another good example of one of these locations as well. So we tried to maximize the use of these because the Census Bureau said maximize use of these, and it also makes a lot of sense for TAZ and other reasons to do just this. So here's where we are now. We're almost done. May 25th, Saturday is the deadline, and so we will be seeking the approval of the KIPTA board here in an hour or so, since this was a 9-county project as opposed to the 5 urban counties. So we will seek their approval here in an hour. And at that point, we will go through the process of submitting these to the Census Bureau, and we should be good to go for many months. Where the only other thing is they'll come back to us and say, good job, or here's a few changes. So on or around January of next year, there may be some feedback. I don't expect a lot because I think we followed their rules virtually exactly to the T. So all leading up to next year's 2020 census. Any questions?
So you think your suggestions will be forward, accepted?
By the KIPTA board or by the Census Bureau? Census Bureau. Yes. In fact, I've had conversations with Census Bureau personnel about some of the problems we have that was wide-ranging, but when I said, here's what we are doing, here's the nature of most of our changes, they said that's exactly what we want.
Is there anybody else that's bringing in changes?
In our region?
Yeah.
No. With the exception, with the possible exception of River Hills over in Clark and Floyd County, they are the official designee to do this process. And so what we've done, this is worth mentioning, we've coordinated that Southern Indiana process just the same way we did in Indiana as we have in Kentucky. I have forwarded those boundaries to my colleague over at River Hills for his submittal to the Census Bureau by Saturday's deadline. Elsewhere across the state, it's primarily the area development districts that have that responsibility. Some have delegated that, including the Green River ad has delegated that to the Kentucky State Data Center, as a matter of fact. So there'll be, everywhere in the state, everywhere in the country for that matter, has this process going on. And again, if there is no feedback, if there are no new ones submitted, you get the ones they proposed. And they proposed those in Kentucky's case at their headquarters, which is in Philadelphia, and then I guess in Chicago for the Indiana case. So I wouldn't expect a lot of changes.
Well, we feel like we've done it logically and we're defensively and used local input in every case.
I mean, we have the 900 or so tracks. I mean, it's very true to say that we've reviewed all 900, each and every one of the 900, and paid some amount of scrutiny to do that. So I hope not. That's a short answer to your question.
Any other questions? There's no action required.
No, sir. And that's simply because we will be seeking that action at the board.
To the board.
Correct.
Yes.
I just want to use this opportunity to thank KIPTA, special envoy, to work on this and work with us and take it all from our plate. And hopefully you'll do the next one too.
We'll see. Who knows? Who knows? It's been a process, and that's for sure. And some of it is it's been very interesting, and I can't thank the people in this room and the staff of the people in this room for your all's help in this process and the feedback that we received.
It has been interesting, especially if you have any interest in like historic geography, how things got where they are and where they used to be and why they're still there, things like that we found.
That's right. There's a big difference of the best way to create tracks in particular and the tracks that we ended up with, and and I say that because we can't really mold the existing tracks the way we'd like. You got to stick with what's there and build from there. Typically split or combined, but typically we'll just cut them in half.
The existing tracks, how long have they been in that location, or when's the last time they were changed or just?
Well, a decade ago was the last time that it was possible, and as part of the 2010 census. Some of them.
Some date further than that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And what happened to my? Oh, okay. So they start with a track number 1, let's say. When it gets split, you get 1.02 and 1.03, I guess, from the process. There are tracks in the eastern part of Jefferson County that are up in the 20s. That is, they've been split so many times over decades that the ones near Middletown, in fact, because that area was something 50 years ago or whenever tracks started, as we currently know it, they've been sliced and diced and cut in half and cut in quarters, cut in eighths, cut in 16ths type thing. So once a decade is when it's possible. I think the history of it goes back about 50 years. I think in some cities it went way back, like the 30s or something like that. Yeah. So once we did keep that in mind in a way in that when we proposed a change to a tract boundary, it should be considered to be permanent. And so we don't want to screw that up because somebody a decade from now or 20 years from now will be like, why did they do that? Just like we were saying right now. So an example of that near Middletown, in fact, is I-64. Currently the same tract near the parklands is in one tract, and we've designated I-64 as a tract boundary.
And it makes more sense now than.
Yes, sir. And part of that is there's minimum population thresholds, and the part south of that, it meets that minimum now, so it makes a good track, and surely it'll make a good track for hopefully for decades to come.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, item number 7 is fiscal year 2018 and 2021. Amanda?
Thank you. Yes.
Welcome.
I'm here to present administrative modifications to our current TIP. We have administrative modification 31. These are all minor project changes, so there's nothing to approve today, but we do, of course, like to mail it out to you, our TPC members, to review. Just a few highlights. We are adding 4 new projects. 1 KYTC project, a maintenance project on I-65 in Bullitt County. 3 maintenance projects in NDOT. The Northeast Global Loop multi-use path along Shelbyville Road was awarded extra CMAQ state funds, so we're adding those funding in as well. And NDOT is really dominating at this time. There's 14 NDOT projects. I think they're reshuffling some things at the end of this year. Are there any questions about any of these projects? Again, we don't need approval or anything today. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Item number, where am I? Other business. Emily Lou, I think, has something to talk to us about.
I kind of handed out this little flyer. If you don't have it, it's still a lot near the registration. I have some over here too. So a national planning conference is coming to Louisville next month, actually about 3 weeks. CNU stands for Congress for New Urbanism. They're a group of architects, planners, engineers, officials, a lot of elected, appointed officials, and so on, kind of silence this one. It's a 4-day conference starting on Wednesday, ending on Saturday, but also Tuesday, there's some activity going on for the community as well. So I encourage you to take a look at it. It's available online. And also, if you cannot attend all the sessions, there are some free sessions available for local residents, officials, planning commission. These are also qualified for the training hours, architect, planners, engineers. So I can send that information to you, specifically the dates and location and time of some of the free sessions. So should I give that to you, Larry? This is like more like a formal registration, but there's some free sessions available.
Okay.
And most of them qualify for training.
If you send that to me, I'll send it to all the members.
Yes, I will.
TTCC as well.
Thank you. Any other business? Item number 9, the one we're looking for, a motion to adjourn. Motion and second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Thank you so much.
Well, it wasn't us, it was all in.